A few years ago, a group of my friends and I embarked on a challenging camping trip in the rugged terrain of the Scottish Highlands. The weather was relentless, and the landscape unforgiving, but despite the physical and emotional toll, the adventure proved to be an overall success. No injuries, no one lost, and nothing remotely unnerving occurred, until the last night when we returned to a small Scottish village, our point of departure. 5 nights in the mountains had taken their toll on us. We were a ragtag group of exhausted individuals with bloodshot eyes and greasy hair, reeking of campfire smoke. The locals eyed us with a mix of curiosity and bemusement as we stumbled upon a small greasy spoon cafe. The sight of it brought tears to our eyes, and we devoured our meals with gratitude. After satisfying our hunger, we headed to the village's only pub, where the welcoming staff extended their hours to accommodate our weary selves. With warmth and spirits lifted, we left the pub with about 20 minutes before our late-night bus was scheduled to arrive. The bus stop was situated near a small bridge that provided a crossing over the village's river, barely visible in the dim light of semi-functioning streetlights. The minutes ticked away as we anxiously awaited our ride home. Suddenly, we heard a grunting sound emanating from the other side of the river. Buzzed and exhausted, we initially dismissed it. However, the noise grew louder and more agitated, catching our attention. Someone on the other side sounded drunk and angry. Curiosity got the better of one of us, and they ventured to investigate. Heavy footsteps echoed on the metal bridge, ascending slowly, then descending faster than before. "Grab your bags now," our friend hissed upon returning. His eyes revealed a fear we had never seen before. The footsteps on the bridge were getting closer, and the grunting grew louder. We hastily dragged our packs across the road into a dark village street, concealed but still able to observe our side of the bridge. To our horror, we saw a man staggering down the metal stairs, a glint of stainless steel in his grip, a machete. The realization hit us as someone exclaimed, "Jesus Christ, is that a machete?" The man, with a rough Scottish accent, locked eyes with us and pointed the menacing blade toward our concealed spot. "You," he roared, beginning to descend the bridge stairs, machete waving menacingly. Panic set in, and we bolted down the dark street, unsure of where we were headed but determined to escape the potential threat. It turned into a makeshift military operation as we moved in pairs, covering each other's movements, acutely aware of the danger. Somehow, we made it back to the bus stop without encountering the machete-wielding man. Relief washed over us, but it was short-lived. 5 minutes after the bus was due, a familiar figure emerged from a poorly lit side street, our would-be assailant, machete still in hand. "Yo!" he roared again, walking slowly toward us. This time, driven by adrenaline and desperation, we stood our ground, brandishing our pathetically small Swiss Army knives, daring him to try us. The scene unfolded like a movie. The man paced back and forth, zigzagging toward us, still wielding his machete. The tension was palpable, and a sinking feeling overcame me, anticipating life-changing injuries. Just when it seemed our fate was sealed, a police van trundled around the corner, revving towards the scene like the cavalry in an old western. Our bravado doubled as 3 burly Scottish policemen jumped out, pouncing on the machete-wielding man. The sickening thud of his head slamming into the concrete echoed, but we cheered victoriously. Faces appeared in windows as nearby residents witnessed the melee. Miraculously, the bus arrived, and we grabbed our bags, padding triumphantly toward our ride home. The police, initially keen on questioning us, backed off when we explained that the bus was our only way out of town. Promising to make telephone statements, we never followed through. The overwhelming relief of escaping unharmed overshadowed any desire to revisit the traumatic encounter. We were just grateful to be out of there in one piece, leaving the small Scottish village behind as the bus carried us away from the night's harrowing events. Camping was more than a hobby for me, it was a way of life. The lure of the outdoors, the escape from the suffocating mundanity of daily life and first-world problems, had become an addiction. I wasn't the typical camper, no fancy tents or pre-packaged meals for me. I reveled in the hardcore side of it, from crafting makeshift shelters to drinking from mountain streams and hunting for sustenance. Last April, the culmination of my outdoor passion led 2 friends and me to embark on a challenging 4-night hiking and camping expedition along the legendary Appalachian Trail. Armed with packs that weighed more than 50 pounds, we covered a grueling 20 miles through lush green hills over 2 days of relentless marching. The physical strain was palpable as our packs dug agonizingly into our shoulders, but the intoxicating sense of achievement fueled our perseverance. The journey unfolded with days blending into nights, forging our way along the trail, foraging for food as we traversed the wilderness. It was a constant struggle, but the profound sense of peace that only the great outdoors could provide made it all worthwhile. Nights were spent by the fire, skewering hot dogs on sticks and savoring the warmth of sweet apple cider in our mess tins. The eerie calls of owls echoed through the forest, and embers danced in the night air like ethereal fireflies as we succumbed to the heaviness of our eyelids. As we ventured deeper into the wild, our attempts to secure protein fell short. Duck eggs eluded us, rabbits outsmarted our snares, and our improvised fishing rods proved less effective than anticipated. Desperation set in, as we realized that man cannot live on cereal bars and peanut butter alone. A journey to the nearest town, 7 miles away, became inevitable. Lost in the midst of our quest for sustenance, we decided to take a shortcut up a steep hill, only to be greeted by an unexpected visitor, thick fog waiting patiently at the hill's summit. The fog descended upon us, shrouding the landscape, and a strange sight emerged, the remains of newborn lambs scattered around, untouched by scavengers. Relief washed over us as the outline of a cottage materialized in the mist. There was no mention of such a dwelling on our map, and its isolation struck us as peculiar. We approached, navigating overgrown weeds and a courtyard adorned with odd curios. A makeshift gate made of tree limbs and rusty nails hinted at a peculiar existence. Venturing to the door, I knocked, my fist feeling the weight of uncertainty. No response. Peering through a filthy window, I glimpsed a chaotic assortment of unrelated items inside. Turning to my friend Chris, I suggested moving on, but he was pale and bewildered. His gaze through the window had unveiled something he struggled to explain. Chris, visibly disturbed, mumbled that someone had been inside the cottage all along, hiding from us. As I banged on the door, this mysterious figure had locked eyes with Chris, revealing a face so distorted that it was impossible to discern if it was due to disability or a severe beating. The figure looked terrified, and the revelation left us shaken. Later that night, by the campfire nursing beers, I pressed Chris for details. He shook his head, attempting to articulate the unsettling encounter. He described the figure's eyes, haunted and terrified, and the chilling possibility that something else, something ominous, might have been lurking in the cottage, something that could have been making its way back to us. Grateful that we never discovered the true nature of the presence in that isolated cottage, I thanked whatever forces kept us from unraveling the mystery that night in the wilderness. Once a year, my stepdad's family organizes a camping trip down in South Carolina. They've been doing it for as long as I can remember, and I've had the chance to attend a handful of these gatherings, thanks to my job permitting it. The first time I joined the camping adventure was right after my mom and stepdad tied the knot. Loaded up in my stepdad's truck with camping gear and my little brother, we embarked on the 9-hour drive from our home in Pittsburgh down to his native South Carolina. We made a pit stop in West Virginia for gas, and that's when things started to take an eerie turn. While my stepdad paid the elderly attendant, I struck up a casual conversation. All was fine until I mentioned our camping plans, and his demeanor shifted. "Always be respectful in nature," he warned, his tone growing serious. "It can be unforgiving. Don't mess with the animals, don't leave anything but your boot prints. Any mess, and, well, the woods have a way of letting you know you're not welcome." I reassured him of our utmost respect for nature, but his mood remained unchanged. We continued our journey into South Carolina, dismissing the strange encounter as a quirky encounter with a gas station attendant. Hours later, at a rest stop before reaching the campgrounds, we encountered an oddity. A wildlife preserve truck stop displayed an information board about local flora and fauna. Carved into the plastic corner were two familiar words: "Respect nature." It sent a shiver down my spine, mirroring the gas station attendant's warning. Coincidence, I told myself, dismissing the idea of a connection. At the campsite, we exchanged greetings with the extended family, set up our luxury glamping tent, and enjoyed a night filled with barbecue and songs around the fire. However, strange occurrences began to unfold. Returning to our tent, we discovered a dead bird near the entrance. My little brother freaked out, and as my stepdad removed the bird, I noticed him retrieving a note from beneath its rotten wing. When questioned, he brushed it off, but the fear in his eyes was palpable. The following day, family members reported hearing mysterious footsteps outside their tents, but no one owned up to being the nocturnal wanderer. Unease settled over the camp, setting the stage for an unsettling night. The second night proved less eventful in terms of footsteps, but a new mystery unfolded. In the dark, I heard my little brother whispering. Straining my ears, I realized he was reciting the information from the wildlife board verbatim, using words beyond his usual vocabulary. Morning brought a tense atmosphere. People were packing up hastily, abandoning the planned stay. My stepdad, wearing a stern expression, urged me to assist in the quick evacuation. The unspoken message was clear: no questions. Back on the road to Pennsylvania, the silence inside the car spoke volumes. It wasn't until we arrived home that I confronted my stepdad. Alone in front of the TV, I cautiously broached the subject. As expected, there had been a note on the dead bird, but it simply said, "Go home." He believed it was a prank by locals or resentful cousins. When I mentioned my brother's strange sleep talk, my stepdad looked puzzled. He hadn't heard it himself. Then, he unfolded the events that led to the abrupt departure. A cousin had discovered a dead deer near the fire pit at dawn, its flesh carved with a chilling message. The letters, formed from clotted blood, delivered a final warning. "Final warning," my stepdad whispered, unable to meet my eyes. The mysterious events of the camping trip lingered, leaving us with more questions than answers. It was the early spring of 2016, and at 24 years old, I had just celebrated my birthday. My friend and I, avid campers, found ourselves at our favorite spot, the Black Canyon Rim Campgrounds just outside of Payson, Arizona. This place had become a retreat for us, offering breathtaking views mere hours away from the city. The surroundings were mostly secluded, with only a privately owned convenience store a few miles away, and a small town further down the road. The entrance was marked by a campground sign, detailing local wildlife, fire hazards, and relevant news for camping enthusiasts. The dirt road, branching into two paths after several miles, offered an exploration of the area. One path led to another highway entrance with a ranger's tower halfway there, while the other ended at an abandoned cabin hidden behind dense foliage. As we arrived around 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, the sun was setting fast, casting a warm glow over the landscape. There were only a couple of other groups nearby, families parked a few hundred yards away from the entrance. This time, we sought solitude, yearning for a break from the hustle and bustle of the city, a sentiment familiar to anyone entrenched in customer service jobs. We ventured down the dirt road, passing our usual spot, until we discovered the perfect area, a small clearing hanging off the edge of a hill, offering an expansive view of the valley and a spectacular sunset. Little did we know that this spot would soon be tainted by an unnerving incident. Agreeing to skip the tent and opt for a campfire, we settled in for the night. The cool breeze hinted that the winter's grip had loosened, and the flora and fauna were coming alive again. Wild horses, deer, and various critters were our usual companions during these trips. The first day passed uneventfully, a much-needed decompression from the stresses of everyday life. However, a subtle feeling lingered, a sense of being watched. Leaves crunched periodically, but I dismissed it as the normal activity of the local wildlife. As night fell, the unsettling feeling persisted. My friend, usually impervious to such sensations, took sleeping pills, an unusual move for our camping escapades. Nature's soothing ambience usually sufficed to lull us into a peaceful slumber. Around 1 a.m., she was already lost in sleep, but I remained restless, unable to shake the eerie sensation. The tranquility shattered when I heard crunching leaves outside the car. I whispered to my friend, but she remained oblivious in her pill-induced slumber. I dismissed it as a curious critter, focusing on my phone. However, the sound returned, this time right outside the door. Lowering my phone, my eyes struggled to adjust to the darkness outside. As the phone's light revealed the window opposite me, I was met with a chilling sight. Two scabbed hands clung to the window, their long, unkempt nails wrapping inside the car. Behind the window, a silhouette pressed against the glass, its breath creating condensation that revealed empty black eyes. Frozen in terror, I couldn't move or scream. It felt like an eternity before the hands slowly released their grip and retreated into the darkness. The footsteps faded into the distance, and only then did I regain control of my body. Pounding on the front seat, I woke up my friend in a daze. I unlatched the back door, scanning the surroundings for any sign of the intruder. Gathering our supplies, I crammed everything into the car, wiping away the handprints on the back window in a panic. With adrenaline coursing through me, I started the car and sped away. My friend, now awake, demanded an explanation. "There's someone out there," I stammered. I couldn't see whoever or whatever it was while fleeing, but the fear lingered as we drove to the safety of the highway. Stopping at a Denny's about 20 miles away, my friend urged me to share the horrifying experience. The nightmare subsided in the months that followed, but my embarrassment endured. I questioned my lack of a fight or flight response, replaying the events in my mind. Who was out there? Another camper playing a prank? A resident of the abandoned cabin? Or something more paranormal lurking in the woods? Despite the lingering fear, we continued camping in the years that followed, always staying close to the highway. I hoped that whatever I had encountered that night was a chapter closed, never to be reopened. From the moment we left the highway behind, I hoped it would be the last I'd see of it. The music in my brother's truck played softly in the background as the miles stretched out before us. My brother, 2 years my senior, and I had shared countless hours in the woods, building forts, crafting BMX tracks, engaging in LARPing escapades, and going on hunting expeditions. Together, we traversed the U.S., exploring caves, canyons, and camping in the wild. There was an unspoken understanding that with him by my side, there was little I wouldn't do or fear. Our journey in 2019 was different, though, and we both felt it. We'd accumulated a trove of adventures and stories, but this one left a lingering stain on my memory. In our mid-20s, we found ourselves deep in a vast public land forest. County roads, mere 2 tracks, crisscrossed the area, stretching for miles. Our camp, set up a couple of miles from the truck, was essentially in the middle of nowhere, with the nearest main road 8 to 10 miles away. We arrived late at night, pitched our 3 tents, one for each of us and another for changing and storing gear, and quickly succumbed to sleep after the arduous trip. The next day was spent scouting and tracking, making our way back to camp as the night fell. We cooked, enjoyed some beers, and relaxed. The night was still young, but exhaustion prompted us to retire early. Up until this point, everything was normal. Suddenly, I was jolted awake by something smacking against my tent, accompanied by my brother's voice urgently calling my name. An unsettling feeling washed over me as I responded. He unzipped my tent and entered, his demeanor clearly disturbed. When I asked what was wrong, he silenced me with a grip on my shoulder and gestured for quiet. It was still dark, around 4:30 or 5 a.m. The otherworldly sounds that met our ears defy explanation. They were akin to whale calls, piercing, loud, and with tones that reverberated through our bodies. The cacophony shifted from high-pitched squeals to deep, ground-shaking reverberations. There were only fleeting moments of silence in between, and the entire experience left me awestruck. I failed to grab my phone to record the surreal moment as the sound seemed otherworldly and unreal. We sat in my tent, both of us immersed in an inexplicable energy. It felt as if my body was enveloped in white noise, a sensation difficult to describe. The sounds persisted until the first light of dawn. I estimate it lasted about an hour, but time lost its usual measure. Minutes after the sound ceased, rain began to fall. What ensued was one of the wildest thunderstorms I'd ever encountered during camping. The weather forecast had predicted clear skies during our stay, making the storm a perplexing anomaly. As if on cue, the stakes securing our tents and gear were violently uprooted from the ground. These stakes, driven into the earth with the force of an axe, would require a tremendous effort to dislodge. My brother dismissed the incident, attributing it to machinery in the distance. But it seemed peculiar, middle of the night, far removed from any civilization, and the sheer force required for such an occurrence left me with unanswered questions. To this day, my brother refuses to discuss it, dismissing it as mere coincidence. Yet, the memory of that night, the unearthly sounds, and the inexplicable storm linger in my mind, a stain that time has failed to wash away.